These integration steps take place in exchange for reforms in the relevant policy areas, but they should be reserved for those who at the same time uphold the rule of law, fundamental rights and democracy, while also working on the alignment with the common foreign and security policy. May I add here, and this goes beyond the scope of the enlargement reports, that we should also apply the same logic of integrating our future members early to the activities the Commission is planning now. So a new momentum of the gradual integration is a cooperation on the field of the following documents. And all of them have to do with how to safeguard our democracy. In the next week, the College will adopt the European Commission, the so-called Democracy Shield. How can we preserve our democracy? And we will include the candidates into this. One part of this will also be, for the first time ever, the European Commission will adopt the civil society organization strategy. How, with the help of civil society, we could protect democracy, and what our President has been announcing, media resilience plan. Resilient media being an important part of every democratic system, and of course especially in fighting disinformation and manipulation of information. Honourable members, enlargement can only be successful if it will make our union stronger. To achieve that, we need more progress on two main pillars. First pillar is that future member states must prepare for the responsibility of member states completely. And second, we must prepare our union for a larger EU. This goes hand in hand. Given the pace of some candidate countries, successful enlargement, and this is really my day today, is a realistic possibility within the coming years. Our candidates have ambitious goals. Montenegro wants to finish negotiations at the end of 26, Albania at the end of 27, Moldova and Ukraine in 2028. For me, ambitions are more important than years or dates, and the Commission is supporting those ambitions. For this year, I can say that these four candidates have matched their ambitions with concrete actions. So what happened? Montenegro is the most advanced and has made significant progress towards EU accession, and it is at the same time the most prepared country. The country produced tangible results on required reforms while remaining firm on its EU strategic orientation. Since the last report, 2 intergovernmental conferences have taken place, closing provisionally 4 new chapters, and more, up to 5 or 6, are still expected to be closed this year. Albania has made unprecedented progress since the first intergovernmental conference in October 24. 4 more clusters were opened over the year, and the remaining cluster is still to be opened in November. This outstanding result is a clear recognition of the firm political commitment of Albania and the clear EU aspirations of its society. 91% of citizens are supporting EU membership. Albania continued to make progress in reforms under the fundamentals cluster and is preparing to deliver the interim benchmarks for it by the end of the year. Moldova has progressed on its accession path with accelerated speed and significantly deepened its cooperation with the EU despite the continuous hybrid threats and attempts to destabilize the country and its EU course. And it is the country which made the most progress in just 1 year. Amid the challenges caused by Russia's war of aggression, Ukraine has demonstrated its commitments to its EU path, moving forward on key reforms. Steps already taken are laying the foundations for recovery and opening space for greater private sector involvement. It will be essential to sustain this momentum and prevent any risk of backsliding, in particular anti-corruption. The screening process with Moldova and Ukraine was completed, and the Commission will continue its work to put the Council in the position to be able to open all the clusters by November. And I really hope that this will happen, because we always say that this is a merit-based principle. So when we say that if the member states are delivering, and I can really prove, or I have proofs with this report that they are delivering, then EU should deliver too.
Bravo.
In Serbia, the authorities continue to declare EU membership as their strategic goal, but the actual pace of implementation of reforms has slowed down significantly. While some recent positive developments are noted, Serbia needs to deliver on credible reforms across the board, most importantly in the area of fundamentals. We also need to see further progressive and stronger alignment with the Common Foreign and Security Policy, CFSP. For all the candidates, 4 countries of the Western Balkans are fulfilling CFSP with 100%. Kosovo we are not measuring. Then we have Ukraine with 99, we have Moldova with 98, and Serbia with 62. It also needs, Serbia, more proactive and objective communication on its EU accession process, and must avoid anti-EU rhetoric, also against the members of the European Parliament. Serbia is expected to overcome the standstill in the area of judiciary and fundamental rights and urgently reverse the backsliding on freedom of expression, on freedom of academia, as well as ensure progress on the electoral framework. This also is something what the citizens of Serbia are requesting. Bosnia and Herzegovina faced political tensions with the end of the ruling coalition and a stalemate in reforms. However, in September 25, Bosnia and Herzegovina submitted its reform agenda to the Commission for Agreement. Following the recent institutional changes in the Republika Srpska entity, the country has now an opportunity to progress on its EU path with, in the first place, the adoption of judicial reform laws and appointment of chief negotiator. Then we could start soon. North Macedonia, as I have said, kept full alignment with the CFSP, and the technical work on the roadmaps and the action plan linked to Cluster 1 continued, but the country has not taken decisive steps to advance in the accession negotiations process over the last year. It has to amend the constitution according to the Council conclusions from 2022 to advance on its EU path. Kosovo remained committed to its European path, but progress was stalled by domestic politics, notably elections and protracted political deadlock afterwards. Turkey is a candidate country and a key partner sharing the same strategic interest in the Eastern Mediterranean, as well as in the Black Sea region, where we work together on cross-regional connectivity agenda. At the same time, the continued deterioration of democratic standards, the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary, and respect for fundamental rights remains a matter of considerable concern. Accession negotiations have remained at a standstill since 2018. In Georgia, the situation has sharply deteriorated with serious democratic backsliding, as never before in one of the candidate countries. We saw a rapid erosion of the rule of law and severe restrictions of fundamental rights. Georgian authorities need to urgently reverse their course to respond to their citizens' demand for a European future. Following the last year's European Council conclusions that the Georgian government's actions have de facto led to a halt of the pre-accession process, and in light of Georgia's continued backsliding on the fundamentals since then, the Commission considers Georgia a candidate country in name only. The coming year will be a moment of truth for all candidate countries, but especially those that presented ambitious plans to complete negotiations. High ambitions come with high expectations on reforms. They need to step up generally efforts to deliver lasting reforms, so it is not just ticking the box that will enable a permanent transformation of their economies and societies to fully adjust to democratic standards and values. And this needs to be underpinned by compliance with the rule of law and fundamental rights and clear adherence to the EU's geopolitical orientation. At the same time, the EU is already taking steps to get ready for new members. And this is the second pillar of our work to make our union stronger. The Commission is working on the pre-enlargement policy reviews and reforms which assess the impact of enlargement on key policy areas. And if Montenegro maintains the pace of progress in preparations for EU membership, we will present a draft financial package for it. So, enlargement for real. Communication efforts in both member states and enlargement countries are being stepped up to discuss benefits and challenges of enlargement with citizens. This is something, dear members of the European Parliament, I'm really asking you that we do this together. We can't enlarge without the approval of the citizens of the European Union, and this is the project not only by the European Commission, but all of us. I will be very happy if we could cooperate in this. This communication will not be enough. We need to ensure that positive dynamics on the rule of law, democracy and fundamental rights are maintained also after accession. That's why, and this is also put in the communication, the Commission considers that future accession treaties will need to contain stronger safeguards while keeping the fundamental principle of equality. What kind of safeguards? This will be a discussion once we will publish the results of the pre-enlargement policy reviews and reforms, and we have to include all of you and all the member states. This is to avoid any backsliding on commitments, I'm speaking with the new member states, taking during the accession negotiations. Future enlargement can only be successful if we ensure that the highest quality of reforms and put safeguards in place that reassure our citizens that the integrity of our union and democratic values are ensured. Each previous enlargement has made our union stronger, and this success relies on readiness. So let us not shy away from having the necessary discussions on how we can make sure a larger union will be the stronger union we need. And I hope I can continue to count on the support of the European Parliament and on all of you, and that we continue our very dynamic cooperation.
Thank you, dear Commissioner, for your presentation. Very precise, straight to the point. We now start the Q&A session, starting with the coordinators of the political groups, followed by a second round of our standing rapporteurs for the enlargement countries. The AFET coordinators have a speaking time of 2 minutes. And for those of you who are not familiar, 2 minutes are 120 seconds. And today there will be no discussions. 120 seconds is 120 seconds. Please stick to your speaking time. Be as collegial as possible. Michael Gahler, to begin with, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and apologies that I was some minutes late. Now, thank you for this very precise overview with regard to the different countries. I think there is the same rules have to apply. That is very clear. And we have challenges of different kind in different countries. When I look to Ukraine, a country in full-scale war, and still trying and managing to be on this enlargement track, I think we see in different countries also different ways to react. I'm confident, I'm happy that, for instance, in Ukraine, they react on mistakes when they make and rectify or correct it. What we've seen in the anti-corruption bodies over summer, that has been corrected to a large extent. I think I would wish that that happens everywhere. When I looked on a country like Serbia, I have the impression that, well, there is backsliding and there is a situation where in the polls that go there, that the largest problem for people in the latest poll is corruption. So that is something that you cannot always quantify in the procedures that we follow by technocratically assessing the progress. So my question is, how is that being factored in not only in Serbia? For instance, in a country like Albania, we have so much organized crime apart from progress that is also happening. So how would you, so to say, address this factor of corruption and organized crime in, so to say, evaluating the real progress on the ground? I think that is a question that we need to answer to. Have put two examples of countries now, but there are others, a principal problem that we need to address in order to keep also the citizens with the process in these countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was exactly 2 minutes. Nacho Sanchez Amor for the S&D Group.
Gracias, David. En esta intervención más genérica querría... I'm speaking Spanish, colleagues. Querría recordar algunos principios esenciales sobre el conjunto de la operación política. El primero es que la geopolítica puede desencadenar el apetito o la ambición por la ampliación, pero el proceso es como es. Y por tanto hay que distinguir siempre las circunstancias geopolíticas que históricamente han conducido a una ampliación, las dictaduras del Mediterráneo, la caída del muro, y otra cosa es el cumplimiento de los requisitos, porque a veces en los discursos públicos de los países candidatos se mezclan este tipo de lógicas. Y otra cuestión relativa a la metodología, comisaria. Si realmente la ampliación es el objetivo político, uno de los objetivos políticos esenciales de nuestra política exterior, en un mundo en el que todo el mundo busca reforzar sus alianzas, habría que remover cualquier obstáculo formal que dificulte el proceso. Han aparecido, sin base en los tratados, exigencias de unanimidad que yo creo que deberían removerse o intentar removerse. Porque si realmente el objetivo político es ir a una ampliación y si nuestros países candidatos están cumpliendo los requisitos por los que se examinan, no puede ser que haya dificultades en nuestros procedimientos internos para alcanzar el objetivo político de esa necesaria ampliación de la Unión Europea. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Nacho. For the Patriots Group, Antonio Tanja Correa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll speak in Portuguese. Senhora Comissária, nós somos, em princípio, favoráveis ao alargamento da União Europeia. No entanto, o alargamento só fará sentido se a União souber cuidar primeiro da sua própria coesão. Há Estados-membros que continuam a ser esquecidos. Portugal é um exemplo evidente. Depois de mais de 40 anos de integração, o nosso PIB per capita continua cerca de 20% abaixo da média europeia e a produtividade mantém-se entre as mais baixas da União. Isto mostra que, mesmo dentro da Casa Comum, há Estados a duas velocidades. Falar de novos alargamentos sem garantir que os atuais membros não ficam para trás é um erro que ameaça a própria credibilidade do projeto europeu. Sublinho também a unanimidade de um Conselho que é, para nós, inegociável. No dia em que ela for abolida, termina a soberania dos Estados europeus e começa uma Europa dominada por maiorias políticas circunstanciais. Quanto ao processo de alargamento, tem havido 2 pesos e 2 medidas. Dou um exemplo. Os Balcãs Ocidentais, depois de mais de 2 décadas de promessas, continuam à porta da União. Mas vemos como, por exemplo, a Ucrânia recebeu em 2 anos mais de 80 mil milhões de euros em ajuda europeia e internacional, enquanto os 6 países balcânicos juntos receberam menos de 30 mil milhões em 2 décadas. Isto mostra, evidentemente, falta de coerência e visão estratégica, porque uma Europa que não protege os seus, que não respeita a igualdade entre Estados e que abdica das suas soberanias, não se alarga, desintegra-se. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For the ECR Group, Mr. Ghiardi, 2 minutes.
Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Θα μιλήσω ελληνικά. Είχα σκοπό να ξεκινήσω με αναφορές στα Σκόπια, το Κόσοβο και τη Σερβία με αφορμή την πρόσφατη επίσκεψή μου στη χώρα. Αλλά δυστυχώς η αναφορά σας, κυρία Κος, προκαλεί και θα είμαι έντονος. Έχετε αναφέρει ότι η κατάσταση με την ένταξη της Τουρκίας παραμένει προβληματική, καθώς μειώνεται ο μη σεβασμός των ανθρωπίνων δικαιωμάτων και το κράτος δικαίου. Μόνο αυτά είναι τα προβλήματα, Κυριακός? Φυσικά έχετε πει ότι μοιράζεστε κοινά συμφέροντα στην Ανατολική Μεσόγειο με την Τουρκία. Ποια είναι αυτά? Η παρεμπόδιση του Great Sea Interconnector, η επίθεση σε γαλλικά και ιταλικά πλοία, η αμφισβήτηση της Κυπριακής ΑΟΣ ενάντια στο δίκαιο της θάλασσας, το τουρκολιβικό μνημόνιο μήπως, ή η κατοχή της Κύπρου? Απέναντι στην Ευρώπη των συμφερόντων, εμείς απαιτούμε την Ευρώπη της αλληλεγγύης και της στήριξης. Γι' αυτό ζητώ να καταδικάσετε την τουρκική εισβολή στην Κύπρο.
Thank you, Mr. Giadi. And for the Renew Group, Petros Ostrevichus, 2 minutes.
Thank you, David. Madam Commissioner, dear Marta, thank you so much for your personal dedication to the cause of the European enlargement. Once you speak and you present the enlargement package, I have a feeling that we are going from the narrow road to a kind of the highway. A highway well marked and well prepared for our advance. Congratulations. So, individual and personal responsibility, political engagement is so important for enlargement. It brings really a clear indication for all of us. I feel that kind of the spirit of Copenhagen from 1993 is well back to the European Union. And those criteria, as you know, I mean, objectively based. So that's why let's keep this track ongoing. Well, I really noticed your right words on conditionality, what comes to the enlargement. Indeed, rule of law, democracy, I mean, they have to be well preserved. Let's look for best means we can implement and do it in a good way. Madam Commissioner, I wish to ask you a bit more on this gradual integration, as you mentioned, on certain markets, which is really practical for member states. And this is a kind of the win-win situation for all of us. I mean, we're enlarging our markets, we get an access. There are more possibilities for member countries' investments, businesses, both sides. So that's why let's go on this gradual integration as much as possible with technical and practical kind of achievements in this way. Again, I noticed your good point on communication and public awareness. I think the European Parliament must more engage with the national parliaments of the candidate countries as well as member states, conveying right messages at the right time in order to promote reforms agenda and to ask those countries to obey all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Petros. Now, for the Greens, Willy Søndal is on my list. You're replacing him, please.
Exactly. I will step into his shoes. Thank you very much for the floor. Vladimir Pavlovich is my name. First, thank you for the presentation of the reports. It is absolutely vital that European Union enlargement policy is again in the very heart of our political agenda, and this is truly a now or never moment to deliver on our commitments primarily regarding the Western Balkans and to finally complete the European integration. However, there are 3 countries that I'm really interested in. I have 3 questions regarding that. The first one is North Macedonia. It was coupled with Albania in the accession process. While Albania is now opening all the negotiation chapters, Skopje remains effectively stuck. Do you see any positive signal or concrete steps in this report regarding the opening of North Macedonia accession talks? And can the Commission do more to help unlock the process and restore fairness and credibility to European Union enlargement? Is there any prospect for the stronger push regarding the constitutional amendments agreements? The second one is Bosnia-Herzegovina. Reform agenda is incomplete with no chief negotiator, and it seems that EU so far is not sufficiently good carrot in quotation mark to push the political elites to deliver. Americans have lifted sanctions on Dodik and all related entities. Do we, as European Union, have an effective plan, or we will just pretend that the de-escalation by Narodna Skupština in Banja Luka is a positive signal itself? And finally, Serbia. This is the example where concentrated European Union pressure finally moved some things on. Our EM Council is close to be finalized and the voters' registry is moving. This is an example, and a good one, where European Union conditionality and our joint effort can move things. I invite you to be as careful as you were now, and not disburse any funds under the growth plan as long as we don't see any concrete results and implementation of these reforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear colleague Prevelic. And now we come to the left. Mark Botenga? No, then he's replaced by Georgios Georgiou. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ευχαριστώ.
I will speak Greek. Ευχαριστώ κύριε Πρόεδρε. Κυρία Κος, ακούγοντας σας, μου γεννιέται μια βασική απορία. Διεύρυνση με κάθε κόστος, τελικά υπηρετούμε τις ευρωπαϊκές αξίες ή προσπαθούμε να εξυπηρετήσουμε στενά γεωπολιτικά συμφέροντα. Παίρνω έναν παράδειγμα, την Τουρκία. Η Τουρκία παραβιάζει το κράτος δικαίου, το λέτε κι εσείς. Έχει υποτάξει τη δικαστική εξουσία στα συμφέροντα του κυρίου Ερντογάν. Έχει φυλακίσει σχεδόν όλη την αντιπολίτευση. Μιλά για δύο κράτη αντί για επανένωση της Κύπρου, στη βάση των ψηφισμάτων του ΟΗΕ αλλά και αποφάσεων των Ευρωπαϊκών Συμβουλίων. Έχει καταρτήσει έναν παράνομο τουρκολιβικό σύμφωνο, παρεμποδίζει την ηλεκτρική διασύνδεση Κύπρου-Ελλάδας-Ισραήλ, έναν σπουδαίο σημαντικό επιχορηγημένο ευρωπαϊκό έργο, και την ίδια στιγμή η Ευρώπη ετοιμάζεται να της αναβαθμίσει την Τελωνειακή Ένωση, τη χαρακτηρίζει ως σπουδαίο σημαντικό στρατηγικό εταίρο και την έχει ανακηρύξει ως εγγυητή, αν είναι δυνατόν, της ευρωπαϊκής ασφάλειας και αν την Τουρκία. Και επιπλέον διαρωτούμε γιατί ακούμε, διαβάζουμε, παρακολουθούμε ότι ο κύριος Κώστα, ο πρόεδρος του Ευρωπαϊκού Συμβουλίου, προσπαθεί αυτά τα ανοίγματα των διαπραγματευτικών κεφαλαίων να τα πετυχαίνει με ειδικές πλειοψηφίες, να καταργήσει το βέτο δηλαδή. Είναι στις προτεραιότητες σας η κατάργηση του βέτο αναφορικά με τα ζητήματα της διεύρυνσης? Ευχαριστώ.
Thank you very much. For the ESN group, is somebody present? That is not the case. Then we come to our standing rapporteurs for the individual countries, also 2 minutes each. And the first is for Albania, Andreas Schieder.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Madam Commissioner, to be with us and to present the report. And I have to say again that I had the feeling the last decade was somehow a lost decade because we did not proceed on enlargement intensively enough. But I'm happy to see now that there is enthusiasm and also progress, but also, let's say, a realistic and critical view on the situation. As I'm standing rapporteur on Albania, and I just recently, last week, had been there for a whole week also in Albania, I see a huge enthusiasm to reach this 2027 goal. And I think it is important to have such a timeline because it creates the pressure on the political system, on the administration and bureaucracy, but also on the society itself, because it's not only about implementing laws. I think they have to implement 500. It's also to make that these laws are at the end functioning and making the country better. And there is a lot of issues, like Michael mentioned, organized crime, fighting corruption, where they did huge things already with the vetting process, but also in other issues. So I wanted to mention also social health care and economic issue, which I think we should also take more into our viewpoint. And second point, I think also we have to look on the public opinion, less in the enlargement countries, but also in our European societies. And I asked the representative of the country, of Albania, to make to be more present in our society, but I think we have to take it also in mind that the opinion here is complicated. And last point, I wanted to mention that just recently Albania was also integrated into SEPA, the European Money Transfer Union. And I think this is very important, not only for the diaspora, but for, let's say, all the economic relations with the country. And I learned that not all banks did implement it properly now, so I hope they will do also quite soon.
Thank you, Andreas. For Bosnia and Herzegovina, Andrzej Kolar, 2 minutes. He's not here. I saw him today, but okay, then he's not present. Then we move on to Kosovo. The rapporteur is Riho Terras. Riho, bitte.
Thank you, David. Commissioner Kos, I would first like to thank the European Commission for publishing the enlargement package. The past year for Kosovo has been extremely turbulent, as you already mentioned. The political deadlock following the general elections in February has practically paralyzed the activities of the government and National Assembly. However, the recent local elections were very positive. Democracy is working in Kosovo, and our task is to support democracy processes. The European Union has a very important role to play in assisting Kosovo, given the current global situation. In this context, I want to stress the importance of the EU growth plan for the Western Balkans. For the growth plan to succeed, it must be inclusive and merit-based. Kosovo must be fully involved and treated on an equal footing with other Western Balkan partners. The necessary reforms depend on our assistance. It is therefore extremely important that punitive measures imposed by the European Union are lifted immediately. Why is it that the EU waiting for lifted measures and establishing again fair situation towards Kosovo? I would also kindly ask not to place the responsibility on the member states and the lack of consensus among them. The measures were defined not by them, but by the European Commission. Kosovo has shown remarkable resilience and commitment to its European part. It has maintained public order, ensured democratic continuity, and demonstrated willingness to cooperate with EU institutions. It is now up to us, the European Union, to respond the same level of political courage and consistency. Thank you.
Thank you. In the meantime, Andrzej, you're back. We were waiting for you. Bosnia and Herzegovina, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Honestly, Chair, dear colleagues, dear Commissioner, I don't have a question, maybe rather a comment. Speaking about enlargement, I think is getting harder and harder, both inside the EU and outside the EU, because whenever I speak about enlargement to anyone, be it EU citizens and be it people from the candidate countries, it seems to me that they less and less understand the importance of enlarging the EU. And people start asking questions, why is it actually important and why do we keep up this idea of enlarging the European Union when we have many other problems and we should face problems like not having enough cash to pay all the bills that we need to pay. And I think that maybe it's time to somehow try to explain to the citizens of Europe that enlargement is a very important security issue, and that it is of utmost importance to actually maybe speed up the process, because to what I see, to my view, many people from the candidate countries have lost the belief, the trust in the enlargement and in the EU as such, and they see it maybe as a game that we play with them in sort of postponing the process further and further on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrzej. Now we come to the Standing Rapporteur for Montenegro, our colleague Marjan Šarić.
Dear Commissioner, dear Marta, thank you for your comprehensive presentation of the report. I have not read the report in detail, but I can say it reflects fairly steady progress by Montenegro in almost all areas. I believe that, technically speaking, the negotiation process is going well, that the Montenegrin negotiation team is doing an excellent job, and that the government is aware of the importance of this moment. Of course, the process is not without difficulties, which are often caused by the internal political, or rather socio-political, developments in Montenegro itself. These create tensions and make the process more difficult, even though all political groups support it at the declarative level. That's as far as Montenegro is concerned. On the other hand, we also face challenges at the level of the European Union, which we must overcome, since enlargement during this mandate is essential. The idea of reforming the European Union before the accession of new members has been circulating for a long time. Realistically speaking, the only countries ready for membership, or almost ready, are Montenegro and Albania. For me, what matters is that enlargement happens, with or without reform. If we are capable of carrying out the reform, I have no objection to it, but I do not want to see a stalemate on the EU side. I also believe that the time has come to start preparing the association agreement. What do you think about this? Thank you very much, and you can always count on us.
Thank you. The Standing Rapporteur for North Macedonia, Thomas Weitz, is not present, so we move on to Serbia, Tonino Picula.
Thank you, David. Welcome, Commissioner Kos, dear Marta, and thank you for your presentation. I welcome also more determined and clear tone on enlargement as such, and particularly state of play on Serbia. Over the past year, the Parliament has repeatedly warned about growing polarization and erosion of democratic standards in Serbia. Just 2 weeks ago, we adopted a resolution condemning state-influenced violence against peaceful demonstrators, intimidation of journalists and civil society, and misuse of surveillance, while calling for genuine electoral reform. These are not abstract concerns. They reflect concrete realities that have affected the lives of citizens across Serbia. Corruption and impunity are not just political problems. They are social injustices that weaken institutions and drain public trust. We will still need some time to analyze all details of your report. However, it seems that the report before us confirms what many of us have long argued. Serbia's leadership must show real political will to advance decisively on its European path. Declared commitments is no longer sufficient. Reforms must not only be promised, but implemented, particularly in the fields of media freedom, judicial independence, and the creation of fair electoral conditions fully in line with the OSCE ODIHR recommendations. The negative campaign towards the European Union, including by senior Serbian officials and pro-government media, has become increasingly hostile, spreading disinformation and undermining citizens' trust in the Union. Full alignment with the EU foreign and security policy also remains a prerogative. A candidate country cannot balance between incompatible alliances. Genuine, result-oriented engagement in the dialogue with Kosovo is also of utmost importance. To conclude, my message to the Serbian authorities is show real progress, not excuses. End intimidation, deliver reforms, and open space for civil society and free and fair elections. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Tonino. For Georgia, Raza Yuknevichiene.
Dear Commissioner, thank you for your personal strong conviction about how important the issue of EU enlargement is, not only for the candidates, but also for the security and competitiveness of the entire EU. Several colleagues in the room participated in the Euronest Assembly session in Yerevan last week. It seems that Armenia is becoming a leader of European hope for the South Caucasus region, when Georgia looks like exactly what you just described. I want to invite you to respond even more boldly to the hand that Armenians are extending to us. We need to be realistic about Georgia. The Georgia dream will not return to the European path. This is the Kremlin's proxy regime. The measures we can take to help the people who have been fighting in the streets for European Georgia for almost a year are sanctions and restrictions on the free visa regime for everyone responsible, including to disinformation channels, one of which is still operating freely here. Russia Today Sputnik are banned, but the GD channel Imedi operates freely here, spreading hate speech against European politicians. I want to know about EU assistance to civil society, because most organizations persecuted by the regime have not received any support so far.
Thank you very much indeed, Raza, for your bold statement. Moldova is Sven Mikser's turn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Commissioner, thank you very much. My question is rather general, but also in this moment of time, I think Moldova specific. I think the Commission report is very good and first of all, a fair document. It gives praise where it's due, but it also provides a very detailed list of the outstanding reforms in different policy areas, the to-do list, if you wish. And indeed, the load of work ahead is huge in all the candidate countries, including Moldova. Now, very recently, Moldovan voters delivered a very clear, unambiguous, and a very positive signal at the elections regarding their commitment to the European path and to the reform agenda. And what is more remarkable, they did so in face of a massive interference and misinformation campaign coming from Russia. Now, you very rightly said that it's important that while enlargement must remain a merit-based process, it is also important that we, on behalf of the European Union, live up to our end of the bargain. Now, the Commission has assessed that Moldova, just like Ukraine, is ready to open 3 clusters, first, second, and sixth cluster. And we know that the political decision to do so is not solely in the hands of the Commission, nor is it in the hands of this House. So my question is, what can we do what more can we do to make sure that we do not frustrate these very legitimate hopes of Moldovan people, but also people in other candidate countries when it comes to living up to our end of the bargain? Thank you.
Thank you, Sven. Now, Michael Gahler is also the rapporteur for Ukraine. Do you want to add something? Then now.
Well, briefly only. I mean, it's the only candidate country in full-scale war. And still we follow, and rightly so, we follow a quarter-wise implementation of the Ukraine facility in exchange, also financially, in exchange for implementing the necessary reforms. And insofar, we have a leverage and are not giving money for free. How would you assess their ability that in spite of the war, they can actually not only pass the legislation in the Verkhovna Rada, but also implement it on the ground? I mean, we are aware of the situation of bombardments and so on. So how do we factor this aspect in? I mean, we cannot arguably expect that the same way to implement it as is if the country was in full peace. So is there a kind of political rebate when it is passed, or do we apply the same standard as if the country was indeed in full peace? And how do we respond to media reports that there are attempts, of course, in a way, from the government side or from the presidency to set certain standards or to set certain developments in place that are war-related, but have the impression that a kind of vertical power is set up, which might endanger the decentralization process. I think the decentralization is quite important to maintain, and are we working in this direction also to maintain it? Thank you.
Thank you. Nacho, anything to add on Turkey here?
Thank you, David. Because we have a report on Turkey means that Turkey is a candidate country. Probably it's good to remind Ursula von der Leyen, because she always forgets to mention Turkey among the candidate countries. My main message, dear Marta, we have to distinguish clearly the accession process to the other part of the relations with Turkey. And especially we have to deny the connection usually heard in Turkey, linking military security and defense to the accession process and membership. This rationale of our military power is opening up the membership of the European Union. There are no shortcuts. We are still a club of democracies, and we want to stay that way. So no shortcuts. The current horrible situation of the accession process is a direct consequence of the blatant democratic backsliding in Turkey. No need to be depicted. Probably in the report is depicted more carefully. Then accession is about democracy. Partnership could be many other things, and you mentioned some of the part of the relation that we can develop with Turkey. But please never mix these two different logic. After many years, there is a question: why not to kill softly? Why not to offer a kind of euthanasia to the accession process of Turkey? Because against all odds, there is in Turkey a vibrant, suffering, pro-European, pro-democratic civil society. And to close formally the process is to kill the hope of many millions of Turkish citizens wanting to join us after completing, for sure, the accession process. In the meantime, thank you for your report. I'm ready to engage with your services if needed to complete the complementary report of the European Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the statements of our standing rapporteurs. Dear colleagues, it's already 5 minutes to 2. We want to give Commissioner Kroes the possibility to answer to some of the questions for 10 minutes. That's why I'm very sorry, I'm awfully sorry, but we cannot give the floor to any further colleagues. Commissioner, it's a very busy day. We would like to thank you that you came directly after the college meeting. That wasn't always the case in recent years. We appreciate that very much. It's a very busy day for you. I know you have to leave on time. So you are now at the floor for roughly 10 minutes, and then we close this meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, dear members. I'm sure we will have enough possibilities in the future, because this report will be with us for the next year, until the next report. But generally, what I want to say, of course, I wasn't able in 10 minutes going through the whole report, country by country, very shortly, to name all generally why we do these reports. And I will just tell you, there are thousands of hours of work. We have been working across 33 DGs and more than 10 EU agencies to deliver something what we really can count on. So this is for me a very important tool. First, to see where the countries are, what is their progress and what needs to be done. And when we are critical in some cases, these are our candidate countries. These are my candidate countries. We do these recommendations, or we are critical because we want them to advance. It is not that we give hope on any of the candidates. But of course, they have to deliver. And both sides, as you have been saying, so it is merit-based, what we want from them, and we are really demanding, but they also have to deliver. Mr. Gala, yes, indeed, corruption is a red line across all the candidate countries. So our focus is on track record. We follow precisely the figures with the indictments, prosecution, and so on. So because anti-corruption field is in the fundamentals, meaning that we cannot close negotiations without once again going very, very much into deep. Yes, there was a setup in Ukraine. They have been doing this much better. I am full of admiration for Ukraine. As you have said, this country is at war and is delivering on the reforms. Sometimes they come some month later, but this is not a problem. I think that it is good that all the candidates feel that we are with them, and we also are offering the technical support, and they get it. It is not just about the money, but the money means sometimes really a lot, especially in establishing some agencies or institutions which haven't been there. For me, the most important insights, one of from Moldova, Sven, has been that Moldova has been successful now for 5th consecutive time, especially because already stronger institutions who can defend democracy. And this is the lesson learned for every of us. So it was possible to fight not just Russian propaganda, but everything what Russia was doing, also putting some, because they have judiciary system and institutions who have been able to fight against. And this is something we should work on all the candidate countries. Methodology, dear Nacho, I like you for this, indeed. If we want to deliver, we have to think about, is it really necessary that for 150 steps in the accession process, we need unanimity? We should stick to unanimity, giving a status and finishing. I will fight for this every time. But for sending a letter, so one of the solutions which could be now enabling Open Cluster 1 or all the clusters for Ukraine and Moldova would be that we would get a mandate commission from the Council that we can go on the working level. You know, when I was in Ukraine the last time, I told Ukrainians, you don't need Orban to do the necessary reforms. And we can help them. I hope that we will be able, together with the presidency, reach this agreement that on the working level, we can go on working cluster by cluster. And when all the conditions will be met, then we open also officially. It is indeed a lot about security. We should communicate this much more. And also, Andrzej, I agree that we should also work on the trust. You know, I hear critics that we are just taking care of Ukraine and Moldova, but not the Western Balkans. I can understand this because it has to do with the approach to the enlargement in the past. But now it is not the truth. One of the proof is that 2 most advanced countries are from Western Balkans. And speaking about the absorption capacities, Montenegro has 600,000 people. This is like Antwerp. Albania has 2.4 million. This is like Rome. Don't tell me that we are not capable to absorb 3 million of citizens. If they fulfill all the criteria, this will not affect our finances, our agriculture, but we have to deliver too. So it will not happen all at once. All the candidate countries, if we keep Turkey outside, since we are not negotiating, it is 60 million. Without Ukraine, which will have a special, we will see what we will do when we will do the accession treaty, then it is 19 million. If we leave out Kosovo and Bosnia and Macedonia, where we even haven't started yet, so we're speaking about roughly 5 million. Are we capable to put them in? I think we are, under the condition that they, of course, deliver. Peters, I agree with you. We go somehow back to the Copenhagen criteria. Stable economy, institutions who are really to defend democracy, and the third, who are ready to survive on the European market. And of course, I'm the first one who is concerned about the concerns in the member states. We cannot do the enlargement against the citizens of the member states. But we have to also explain clearly what is a real problem and what is not a problem. And in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Vladimir, yes, we have a plan. And this plan is to Dayton was good to stop the war, but the decision-making process embodied in Dayton is not exactly positive, has influence on the what is going on there. But we are on the good process, and perhaps we will make a breakthrough in this year. Oh dear Rasa, Georgia. You know, I'm telling that I'm so proud that we have helped Moldova fighting the disinformation or fighting this autocratic system who would like to see us fail. I'm sorry we didn't do this for Georgia, and I agree with you, it is lost. That's why, yes, Armenia, we should help. This is the other part. It is not a candidate country, yes, but let's talk about this in the future also. How will we prepare, dear Marian, for Montenegro? You are very lucky because your country could be the first in the EU, and Mr. Shida also. So, of course, we will do and prepare a special financial package, and once the advancement it will be really great, then, of course, we will also have to prepare the accession treaty. Serbia. Yes, we are very critical, but at the same time, I'm offering the hand. You can get everything from us, because being a candidate, it's commitments both sides, but they have to deliver. And, of course, alignment with the CFSP and really stopping, and this is no criteria in the accession process, but I can't hear any more politicians from Serbia accusing the EU standing behind what's happening in Serbia. And I will fight that this disinformation will stop. Otherwise, there will be consequences. I don't know if I answered all, but really I'm looking forward to all the exchanges, and please follow what is going on in the countries. I like your support. I like being challenged with you, because I see this as our common project, Mr. Chair, not just of one commissioner or of the Commission, from all of us.
Dear Commissioner Diamata-Kos, thank you for today's exchange. The ball is now in our side. Our standing rapporteurs stand ready to soon start their work on the respective country reports. We look forward, dear Commissioner, to continuing our good cooperation. We will now have the coordinators meeting of AFID. That is an in-camera meeting, so may I please ask all of you to leave the room as quickly as possible. Have a wonderful